from Harvard University in 1981. He is currently director of the Institute of Science, Technology, and Public Policy and professor of physics at Maharishi University of Management. It's a very great honor to welcome Dr. John Hagelin.
Good afternoon, Shankaracharya Maharaj, Rajaramji, great sadhus and scholars and scientists and political leaders and entrepreneurs. It's really an honor to be participating in this great new awakening of the profound and powerful Vedic wisdom in this auspicious conference. My focus and the focus of this conference primarily is the Vedic science and its practical technologies in our modern world today. Most people throughout the world, many even in India, certainly many young people in India, don't truly know what Veda is. The focus of my talk today will be that Vedic science, the Vedic wisdom, is truly scientific. It is immensely practical and proven, and it is increasingly indispensable in this modern age. I will show that the Vedic tradition, as I think you all realize, is founded upon the complete knowledge and practical utilization of the ultimate reality, which in the modern scientific language we call the unified field. So since we're talking about Vedic science and technology, let me phrase the question and answer it from the standpoint of a physicist. What is Veda? Well, in essence, as the chart shows, Veda is the foundational level of natural law, the deepest laws of nature governing the universe, the laws that govern the emergence of the universe, the evolution of the universe, the deepest laws of nature. Now, from modern science, looking back over the history of the last 50 years, has been an exploration of deeper levels of reality, deeper and deeper levels of reality, beginning with Newtonian physics or classical physics of the macroscopic, observable world, our environment. But then, in the last century, delving into the world of the atom, which is governed by quantum mechanics, and then delving into the realm of the nucleus, which is governed by quantum field theory. And now, the main thrust of physics today is delving into the unified field. As this chart shows, or superstring field in the language of physics, the most fundamental laws of nature that give rise to all the particles and forces that govern the universe, all of the atoms and molecules and macromolecules and physiologies and planets and galaxies. The whole universe, as you can see, emerges stage by stage in a very precisely understood mechanics from universal, pure intelligence, the unified field giving rise to the world of matter. And the whole understanding by science of the dynamics of that unity, the mechanics of creation, the mechanics of the emergence of this ever-changing relative universe from the never-changing absolute, the emergence of the mortality from the field of immortality. That is the focus of physics today, and that is, as this chart shows, the eternal focus, the eternal wisdom of the Vedas. In fact, I will claim and then show that the Vedic knowledge, the Veda itself, is that fundamental dynamics of unity at the basis of the emerging diversity of the universe. That in the modern scientific language, Veda is the unified field. In showing that, this audience today may not require much convincing. But honestly, in giving this talk to most scientific audiences in the West, they say, well, wait a minute. Are you saying that the ancient rishis and forest dwellers thousands of years ago actually conceived of the fundamental unity of life? They understood, even experienced the unified field at the basis of creation. And I will typically say, I hate to disappoint you, but actually the Vedic science is in most important respects more advanced and far more practical in its application than modern science. I'm going to show that. This is what I call my 6-minute detour. I'm going to show, because there are scientists in the audience, that the unified field is the Veda, and the Veda is the unified field. Well, how do you show that? Well, one way is to look at the universe that comes out of the Veda, and look at the universe that comes out of the unified field, and I will show that they are identical. If somebody gives you 2 seeds, and they say these are very precious orange seeds, and they will yield a very precious orange tree, you might just believe them, or if you're skeptical, you may want to prove that these 2 seeds, these 2 unified fields, the unified field and the Veda, are really the same. Well, one thing you can always do is you can plant the seed in the ground and watch what comes out, and you can determine whether you do get an orange tree, or maybe one of them gives a lemon tree. So if we look what comes out of the fundamental unified field, what comes out of the Veda, if they're different, then the unified field is not the Veda. But if they are the same, then the unified field and the Veda are the same seed. Different languages, different approaches. One experiential, the other mathematical, intellectual. But we can see whether they are the same. So let's take a look. What comes out of the unified field? The universe comes out of the unified field. And this shows a little bit what the unified field is. Unified field is an ocean of pure existence, an ocean of infinite silence, an unbounded sea of intelligence and pure creativity. But on the surface of the ocean is the ever-changing world of change and of dynamism. So silence at its core, dynamic on the surface of the ocean of pure being. That is the structure of the unified field. If you wish, in the Vedic language, this infinite silence, absolute unchanging, beyond space and beyond time, may be Shiva, Purusha. The ever-changing relative on the surface of life is the Shakti of Shiva, the dynamism that brings forth the universe, or Prakriti. Now, in physics, these bubbling emergence from the unified field, the universe that emerges, has a particular geometric shape. These bubbles look like ginger ale, continuously bubbles of ginger. They're not ginger ale, actually. These are called superstrings, and they are actually infinitesimal elastic loops. That's just what the mathematics tells us. By the way, we have a word in the Vedic literature talking about this emerging Prakriti. Sutratma, or string self, is a name that is used for this aspect of Prakriti. But we have these fundamental strings, and these strings vibrate. Rubber bands vibrate. And they vibrate in certain ways, with certain frequencies. And the mathematicians can calculate all the different vibrational frequencies, the tones of a rubber band. It's relatively simple, except these rubber bands live in 10 dimensions. So there's a lot of elbow room, a lot of wiggle room, and it gets a little more complicated. But the miracle of unified field theory the magic of string theory is this. When you calculate the different frequencies of the unified field, calculate the different frequencies, which means the different energies of vibration. And according to Einstein, that means different masses of the superstrings. The higher vibrations have more mass. The lazy vibrations are nearly massless. When you do the calculation, amazingly, what you find is the universe we know. And the universe we know is made of 5 fundamentals. These are called the 5 spin types. Spin 2, graviton. Spin 3 halves, gravitino. Spin 1, forces like electromagnetism. Spin 1/2, particles like electrons and the Higgs boson. And these 5 fundamental ingredients of the physical universe that come out of the unified field actually have a more holistic description in terms of what are called 3 superfields. The unification of graviton and gravitino give you gravity superfield, and so forth, in just this way. But isn't that exactly the nature of the universe that arises from the Ved? In the Vedic literature, we have the emergence, and this is described in Charak Samhita and in Ayurveda, you have the emergence of the physical body in terms of these 3 very subtle qualities called prakritis, doshas. And these doshas are 3, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. And Vata, Pitta, Kapha are the combination of Akash and Vayu. These are the Pancha Mahabhutas. Tejas and Apas, or fire and water. And Apas and Prithivi, or water and earth. These unifications bring 3 from 5, or 5 from 3. That is exactly the structure we find in physics. And it's not only that we have this mathematical correspondence in the language of physics and the language of consciousness, the language of the Veda. Not only do we have this mathematical correspondence and precise groupings, but it's also what they are. I mean, what is Akasha? Akasha is space. Space is subtle substance. As Einstein would say, space as relativistic fluid. Einstein said that gravity is just the curvature of space which flows like a fluid. This is the ether. This is Akasha. So this correspondence of what comes out of the Veda and what comes out of the unified field of physics is exactly the same. So comparing the lemon tree with the orange tree and finding that they are the same tree means they come from the same seed, and that Veda and unified field are one. Now, there's one more step in this. There are actually 5 main avenues of scientific proof that are popular among physicists about the identity of Atma and Veda with the unified field. I'm showing you one. That's the quantitative correspondence, the structural correspondence